Hello, hello. Welcome to our lovely time, Suzanne and I, to chat with you about all things amazing. Today, we're going to talk about this feeling that many of us have when we feel misunderstood, even when we're saying the right thing. So, I would love for you to be grounded in here with us, and maybe you can find in your life right now something that feels like that is happening in the now moment where you're feeling a bit misunderstood, even though you're saying all the right things. Perhaps you're walking out of a meeting and you had a conversation. It felt like a normal day, but you wondered to yourself, or you had that internal feeling about, why doesn't it feel like people see me? Why does it feel like I'm not being understood? I've said the right words. I feel like I'm being super clear, but yet I'm noticing the people around me don't seem to get me or aren't really hearing what I'm saying. So it's kind of like something isn't getting through. It's like you show up, you speak, and you interact. And really, on paper, it looks like you're doing all the things on point, but somehow people aren't totally getting you. I know I've had these moments before. There's really some sort of disconnect and maybe like a subtle tension that you can't quite name. And it's really not about what you're saying. It's almost like there's these two different versions of yourself.
Yeah, I'm hearing this buzzword that gets
Mm.
thrown around all the
Mm.
time, which is this buzzword of authenticity, right?
Yeah.
But how can you really be authentic when you have that disconnect or that invisible tension between who you are and who you think you should be?
Mhm.
Because the fact of the matter is, I don't know very many humans that are not exactly who they are when they're in private and when
Mhm.
they're in public.
Mhm.
And, there's nothing wrong with that because I think there is something to be said about, when you're in public, you're around different cultures, you're around different religions, you're around different um, you know different age groups. There's certain ways in which we need to navigate who we are in the world of diversity and the world of outside our own four walls in our home.
Mhm.
So this thing with authenticity, that we if we it's like this. Sure, maybe I want to run around naked, but if I go outside, I should probably put on some clothes, right?
Yeah.
And so there is this natural putting on your costume,
Mhm.
putting on your whatever it is that you want to wear so that you don't get, burned by the sun, if all your pink parts are exposed, right? So, or yellow parts or
Whatever,
whatever part.
whatever color.
The parts of you that are tender and
Mhm.
can get sunburnt really easily because they usually don't see the sun. So it's the same with our personalities. Sometimes our personality is maybe too bright for somebody else and they're like, you're too much, right?
Mhm.
So we dim our personality down because of whatever, or we say, F you, I'm going to turn it up and I don't care what you think. And I'm going to fly this flag and that flag and all the flags and all of the things, right? And then
Mhm.
it becomes war
Mhm.
because of the energy of, is it really about you expressing yourself, or are
Mhm.
you just trying to like put your fist to the man? I don't know. But you know what I mean? There is always within, if you look at your life and you look very honestly, you will
Mhm.
know that when you're by yourself with your
Mhm.
own private thoughts, no one else is around, it may be just a little bit different than when you are in public and when you are around a whole group of diverse people.
Mhm. Yes. And I think when we talk about that private self, I don't know if a lot of people think about that.
Mm,
You know, do we, I mean, I know that when I'm alone and by myself in my house and my husband's gone, it's kind of like my private self time, where it's not that I can't be myself when my husband's home, but it's this time where I get to really notice my thoughts. I get to really do things however I feel like doing them. And I think most of us don't necessarily think of that side of ourselves and really think about what is this private self? Like, who is she or he or they, or who is this being that you're in, and what does that mean to even ask yourself what your private self is? I know for me, my private self knows a lot of things about myself, but I don't necessarily take those out into the public because it's not necessary for the world to know all the things I'm thinking. And you know it's it's then understanding between the two, that I think also I'd like to invite anyone listening to be thinking about, well, what is your private self? Like, what does that even look like?
yeah. So I remember back in the day, in the 90s, when I worked for a semiconductor company. And so I would go to a lot of work parties. And so there would be spouses there. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was working, with these engineers and with the production and all this, and you'd see their family. And
Mm-hmm.
so I remember several times this would happen where the spouse would go, "Oh my gosh, like this is who is this guy right here?" Like they saw a different
Yeah.
person at
Yeah.
home. And
Yes.
and I remember one time, we were all laughing so hard because this guy was so funny at work, like so
Uh-huh.
funny. And
Uh-huh.
then when he was at the party with his wife, he was like really tight and really kind of like not as funny.
Oh, wow.
And then somebody said something and was like cracking a joke, and then he made some kind of funny, and then his wife said, "Oh my gosh, he's never funny at home." And I got to watch a
Ooh.
breakthrough of like, she had no idea what he was like, and he had no idea that she was welcoming that. And so it
Oh,
was like this whole thing. And so it was like, that's kind of
wow.
an example of,
Yeah.
sometimes we act a certain way
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
with in a different
Mm-hmm.
environment,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Than say like in a work environment
Mm-hmm.
versus in a home environment,
Yeah.
versus in a church environment,
Mm-hmm.
versus in a nice restaurant environment.
Yeah.
We tend to kind of almost go to different environments and feel into that place. Like I loved traveling, going to different countries, and I
Mm-hmm.
loved immersing myself in the culture
Mm-hmm.
because if they wanted me to cover my head, I
Mm-hmm.
will cover my head
Yeah.
because I'm in their town,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So anyway,
Right.
just like that, like, am I being authentic? Well, I'm
Uh-huh.
being respectful, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, would I wear that at home? No. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's you know
Yeah.
that's kind of like, I guess, real examples
Yeah.
of how we all kind of either shift a little bit or never shift at
Mm.
all. I don't know. You have to ask yourself that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, and I think you can also ask yourself the question, is there like tension between the private self and the public self? Like I like you, that example that you gave about that gentleman not being that way at home. Like, was there tension for him there, or was he just not conscious of it? But I think it's really helpful for us to be thinking about, is there, are we two totally different things? And is there tension between the two? And is that why people are not understanding us, because of the way that we're showing up? Because they can sense that there's something not authentic, or maybe you're bringing like a super people pleasing to the public facing audience, and you're not necessarily that way when you're at home or when you're with your family. Or I think there's a lot of ways that we can take a look at how that looks for each of us individually.
Yeah, and I will share my belief system because I
Okay.
don't know. This is my belief
Mhm.
system. I don't know.
Okay.
And I'll be speaking from my experience of myself that
Mhm.
informs my belief.
Okay.
Okay. So I believe that I am a multidimensional human,
Mhm.
meaning I am a dynamic human that is able to feel a lot. And so I feel emotionally a lot on the full spectrum. And then I also know that there are different personalities
Mhm.
that depending on like who I'm with. Like there's a friend of mine who every time I see her, I
Mhm.
turn into my little girl on the school playground and we laugh and we giggle and we
Uh-huh.
just have so much like almost like a childlike innocence. But
Mhm.
yet I if I'm talking to my doctor, I'm not going to be giggling and laughing and
Mhm.
whatever. So I feel like there is this movement
Mhm.
within my personality that is multidimensional in
Mhm.
that it allows me to have different experiences with different people, and
Mhm.
depending on what is what is maybe required in that moment, or what is just able to be in play and fun in that moment,
Mhm.
or what is happening,
Mhm.
to be able to move through that fluidly
Mhm.
is very liberating.
Mhm.
And I feel that all humans want to feel that full expression of color and texture and
Mhm.
movement. And, that is, I think, from my belief system, I
Yeah.
believe that everybody wants to feel that feeling. And
Mhm.
that's why when we use a buzzword like feel free,
Mhm.
that's what it feels like.
Yeah, right, right. And to me, I feel like what you just described, and I can totally relate to that belief system, is that is really what authenticity is like in real action, because you are responding and being who you need to be, or not necessarily need to be, but being what the conditions of what is arising is going to be the best. And I think sometimes folks just lock themselves into an identity, or ego is running the narrative, that we don't realize that we can be responding to things differently. And it doesn't mean that we don't know who we are. Because I think sometimes we think, oh, well, I have to be this way every single time to every person. And that doesn't really work, because some people might be more creative with you, other people might be super logical. And so being able to be fully yourself in those spaces, I think bridges that gap between the private and public. And again, we get to be discerning, my favorite word, about what is appropriate for each of those environments.
Wow. You gave me an aha moment when you said that,
Mm,
because I was thinking of like, I've had clients in the past where they're like, I'm just so tired of being the people pleaser. And I'm like, wow, you know what?
uh-huh,
That's so cool that you're so bored and tired of this role that you're so tired of.
mhm,
And you are probably the one of the most generous people I know. And
mm.
can we shift that into this idea? Like, does it have to be all or nothing? Could it be that you love humans so much that
Yeah.
you give them the respect that they deserve in
Mhm.
that moment? And it's not that you're performing in a people-pleasing way, and
Mhm.
it's not that you're chameleonizing yourself, but
Mhm.
is it possible that you just love so deeply? And can we connect with that? Because I
Ooh,
wanna connect with that part of you. I wanna
yes.
connect to that lover of life.
Yes,
That
yes.
one who is a team player, I wanna connect with that.
Mm. I love that. I love that, because you gave that person a whole different view, and then they could identify with that way differently than identifying with, I'm a people pleaser and it causes these challenges, but oh well, I'm stuck. And for this person, they were tired of it. They just needed a different framework, because that to me sounds like their true core soul self is here to serve and care and love. And I think most of us can relate to that feeling, but we often then think that it looks a certain way. Because I know for me, sometimes really deeply, deeply loving means I might be fiercely compassionate, which might mean I'm setting a very strong boundary, right?
Yes,
But I
yes.
know it's coming from love and it's coming from respect for myself and respect for the other person.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, yeah, have you seen the cougar in the wild? The mama cougar who's their little cub is getting hurt? Oh,
mhm.
she ain't nice. She ain't not people pleasing.
Nope. Nope.
There will be
Nope.
no people pleasing
Yes.
here.
Yeah, none at all. And then yet, if we go to the wild again, we can also know that animals will kill an animal kindly. They will get exactly the jaw on the area that stops the blood flow so that that animal will die as quickly as possible. So to me, that's still love because that animal is feeding her family, but doing it in a way that is not excessively violent, you know. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
They're not compromising. They're
Yes.
not compromising, and they're not, um, compensating for something. And
Mhm.
when I'm people pleasing, I
Mhm.
might be in a situation where it's dangerous,
Mm. Mm.
and I might be in a situation where I need to back off. And if that's part of the bartering system that I'm going to do and compensating and compromising my
Mhm.
authentic self that would probably just take a firm stand, I will
Mhm.
back away and I won't say a word and I'm
Mhm.
out of there. So it depends on when it's like when translating that language,
Mhm.
when somebody says, I'm so sick of this, it's like what they're saying is, I'm tired of compromising myself.
Mhm.
I'm tired of compensating and I'm not being met or whatever it is. And
Mhm.
that's something to work with.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. I know before we went live, we were kind of chatting about our own things, and I shared a bit about a situation in my life where I had to make a really big decision, and the public view of that was that no one was going to understand it. And in fact, they were going to question my decision. They were going to judge my decision. But my deep, deep private self knew that if I didn't make this decision, I was going to compromise the rest of my life. And I couldn't assume that my body would be able to manage that. So there was, I think it's just interesting to kind of even think about what it means when we're truly being authentic to ourselves. I'm using that word again, and we're responding to each thing based off of who we know we are and how we want to show up in the world. Oftentimes, the public will not view that with understanding, and again, it's not our job because we are honoring ourselves first and foremost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know this is probably private and you don't have to
It's
answer this
okay.
question seriously,
We'll
but at
see.
the same time, I have
Yeah.
to ask it.
Okay.
Um, Was there ever a time where you like, if you can remember during that time where you
Mhm.
were really proud of how you responded, and another example of when you were like, "Ugh, I wish I wouldn't have
Mhm.
responded that way." Do you remember
Oh,
having that?
yeah. Yes. Yeah, I can think of both examples. When I was really proud, I just felt so clear and it was almost like it was a pivotal moment because it made me realize that this is how I wanted to carry forward. So it was almost like an indicator that, oh, that is how you do that. And a time when I wasn't so proud was because I really think that a lot of it had to do with being overly emotionally charged and not having an understanding of all the things that were happening in the background, like the beliefs and the expectations and the judgments, like all of that was circling around. So I didn't feel like I communicated that very clearly. So it just made it messier.
Wow, so
Yeah.
almost like full circle of
Mhm.
ever felt like you were misunderstood, right?
Totally.
Like,
That's how I started.
it's like this whole full
Yes. Oh my
circle
gosh.
of,
Yeah.
like, it
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
back to that. I think we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
all relate. If we look at a scenario in our life that was challenging
Hmm.
and just, like, if you could wrap it up in a something, it's
Mhm.
misunderstanding.
Yes.
And it's so hard because nobody knows our hearts. Nobody
Mhm.
knows our brains. Nobody knows our experience. Nobody knows. Like, they can just look at somebody and go, "Oh, they got it all figured out. Look at them. Look at the car they're driving. Look at blah, 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 blah." And it's like,
Mhm.
nobody knows what it
Mm-mm.
took.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then you can look at somebody and it's like they are they are completely not what you think. And they
Mhm.
can pop up and just surprise you so much. And
Uh-huh.
I look forward to those surprises with
Uh-huh.
people. I'm
Uh-huh.
looking for surprises. I don't want to know what, like, all the superficial stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
surprise me. Please surprise me.
Show me something
Show
cool.
me who you are.
Yes, yes. I mean, and I think a lot of times we're navigating people that, aren't they don't feel safe to show themselves, or they really don't know themselves. And I think sometimes, I play with this just grocery shopping. I just notice people, and I notice the expression and the energy of them. And I'm very careful not to make lots of judgments from that. But I also see sometimes that people are wearing this public facing face that it's just, you just want to go in and just give them a hug and say it's okay to come out. You don't have to, and sometimes it's a very angry expression, because the perception of the world is it's not a safe place, it's not a great place, and everybody's out to get me. And it's like, oh, I don't know how that how that's really relevant to this, but it just kind of made me think about that, when it comes to just really how we perceive others and how others perceive us. I think we never really know how people truly perceive us. We can't. It's just the way that it's built. But the more we understand ourselves and we get really clear, and we remove that static between that public self and that private self, we then can operate in such a clearer, way of moving forward. And truly, that's what we offer in the signal code. Everything that we talk about today is taking that piece that we're talking about and moving the dial forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you there? Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, is that a train?
Oh my God, you can hear the train.
Oh, I heard something in
Oh
my ear.
yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
That's
that's
my train.
like, "Boop,
Mhm.
boop,
Yeah. Boop,
signal,
boop.
signal, signal
Oh my
code, boop,
God, get out of the way.
boop.
Get out of the
The
way. I'm
signal
coming.
code is coming down the tracks,
Here
people.
we go. Perfect
Get
timing.
on the train.
Get
Get
on
on the train."
now. The train goes Thursday. Get on.
That is hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
That
Yes.
train knew what it was
Yeah,
talking about.
exactly. Talk about surprises. Those are
Yeah,
fun.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
Huh.
thank you so much for this conversation. And there's going to be a
Mm,
lot more conversations like that and a lot more opening to that true authenticity, who you really are.
mhm.
And in fact, I want to say one thing.
Okay.
Being a resilient, resourceful, strong human can also be misinterpreted.
Mm, mm,
And this is a really safe place to be strong and to be bright and to
mhm,
be your full self. Because I know that there are a lot of in the world places where safety is in a false sense of self. You can't be strong because you will also get rotten tomatoes thrown at you if you are your authentic strength.
mhm,
So, just so you know, all is welcome.
mhm,
Developing all parts of ourselves is welcome in the signal code.
mhm.
So that's
Absolutely.
what I just wanted to add.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. All
Okay.
right.
Well, we will see you next time.